H3O plus ion and OH minus, that you can see water and water for so many compounds. That's why we call it as a universal solvent. HCl to form H3O plus ion and Cl minus ion is liberated with an electropositive metal. That is, if you add sodium to water, what happens? Temporary hard water are those which has bicarbonate salts of calcium and magnesium, in which sodium ions are not there. It is all taken up with water, isn't it? Hello my dear students, welcome back to the third session on the chapter hydrogen. Last class we studied about the properties of hydrogen as well as about the hydrides. Today we learn about water. We learn what are the properties of water as well as we learn about hard water and soft water. So first, water is found in most of the living organisms and it is the major part of the living organism. In human body 65% is water and in plants 95% is water. So it is also very crucial compound for living. It's also called as universal solvent. Water is a major part of all the living organisms. If you see, human body is made up of 65% of water, whereas plants are made up of 95% of water. It is a crucial compound for all the living organisms. Also, it is called as the universal solvent. If we see the physical properties, it's colorless, tasteless, liquid, correct? Also, it has got a high boiling point, it has got thermal conductivity, it's got dipole moment. Also, it is used as a solvent for so many compounds. That's why we call it as a universal solvent. There are some organic solvents also, or organic substance which are soluble in water due to formation of hydrogen bonding. If you see the structure of water, it has got a bent shape because of the two lone pair of electrons on oxygen. Thus, the angle is 104.5 degree and the bond length is 95.7 picometer. In detail about the structure of water, we will have studied in chemical bonding chapter, isn't it? So next we'll be learning. Next we shall learn about the structure, and because of the structure, what are some of the anomalous properties of water. If we see the structure of ice, it is having a hexagonal structure. Because of its structure, they can float over water. What exactly is the structure? Why the density of ice is less than water? We'll understand. If we see oxygen atom, there are 4 hydrogen atoms around it, and tetrahedrally it has got 4 oxygen atoms which is surrounding it, and it has got a 3-dimensional hydrogen bonding. You can see all the dotted lines are because of the hydrogen bond, and you can see there's a hole which is there in between, or which is formed in between, that is the vacant space. And we know that density is mass by volume. When the volume is more, the density will become less, isn't it? Thus, ice floats on water. Okay, and because of the formation of hydrogen bond even in the liquid state, we can see the boiling point of water is really very high. So these are some of the anomalous properties of water. Next we have chemical properties of water. First is amphoteric nature of water. Water can act as an acid as well as a base. Thus we call them as amphoteric. That is because they act as an acid as well as a base. If you see the examples here, water when it reacts with an acid, here water is acting as a base, here it is acting as an acid. So here what happens? It takes up an H plus ion, it forms H3O plus and Cl minus is formed. Now if water is acting as an acid, it gives away H plus ion to form OH minus and NH3 will take up the H plus ion to form NH4 plus ion, that is the ammonium ion. So you can see it can act as an acid as well as a base. Also, water can undergo autoprotolysis or self-ionization to form H3O plus ion and OH minus, that you can see water and water. Two water molecules, it will undergo self-ionization. That is, one water molecule will give away H plus ion, the other one will accept it to form H3O plus ion and OH minus ion. We call it as self-ionization or autoprotolysis. Next property is reactions involving water. So, what are the reactions which we have to learn? First one, water can reduce dihydrogen at highly electropositive metal. That is, water with an electropositive metal, that is, if you add sodium to water, what happens? It makes an hissing noise and it moves around and liberating hydrogen gas. And what it is forming? It is forming sodium hydroxide and hydrogen gas is liberated. Similarly, water can oxidize O2 by photosynthesis and it can also react with fluorine. How? You can see carbon dioxide and water combines with one another to form C6H12O6. Water and oxygen gas can be liberated. That is nothing but photosynthesis process, isn't it? Fluorine can react with water to form H plus ion, F minus ion, and oxygen can be liberated. So we are learning that oxygen can be liberated when carbon dioxide is reacting with water, that is photosynthesis process, or fluorine is reacting with water. Okay. Next is hydrolysis. It is having a strong hydrating tendency, so it will dissolve many ionic compounds or certain inorganic compounds as well. We can see P4O10, okay, reacts, that is phosphorus pentoxide will react with water to form phosphoric acid, or silicon tetrachloride reacts with water to form silicon dioxide and HCl gas is formed. So this is some of the hydrolysis reactions, that is, in the presence of water there is lysis which is happening, or water will continuously dissolve the given ionic compound to form an acid. Here you can see it will dissolve or it will combine to form an acid, or it will undergo hydrolysis, that is hydrogen will go with chlorine to form HCl and oxygen will come with silicon to form silicon dioxide. Okay, so either hydrolysis or it will dissolve an organic compound. Next we have hydrate formation. In many aqueous solutions, when you dissolve a substance and then recrystallize them, or you are crystallizing them, you are getting back the dissolved substance, you are crystallizing, then water will go as water of hydration, or it will crystallize as hydrated salts. How many types of water of hydration can happen? That is, first you can see you can have coordinated water, that means water can act as a ligand, then we call it as coordinated water. Or it can be interstitial water, that is water can be present in the interstitial spaces of the solid. Or it can be hydrogen bonded water. Here this is hydrogen bonded water, that is water of hydration, that we call it is blue color. If we remove this water molecule, it will become anhydrous copper sulfate, which is white color. Okay, so it is bonded to copper sulfate with hydrogen bond, so we call it as hydrogen bonded water. So water molecules can combine with the other substances and form hydrates. So three types of hydrates are possible. Okay, next is about hard water and soft water. Rainwater can dissolve many salts like bicarbonates, chlorides, or sulfates to form hard water. We know that hard water does not give lather with soap, and hard water also forms precipitate with soap, which is called as scum. Okay, thus it is unsuitable for laundry. It is not useful for laundry. There are two types of hard water: temporary hard water and permanent hard water. So we'll go into the details of temporary hardness and permanent hardness of water. First one we have is temporary hard water. Okay. Temporary hard water are those which has bicarbonate salts of calcium and magnesium. Usually there are insoluble salts in hard water, isn't it? That is, calcium and magnesium salts will be formed. First we learn about temporary hard water or temporary hardness. Temporary hard water is that which contains the bicarbonate salts of calcium and magnesium dissolved in them. Okay. How do we remove temporary hardness? First is by boiling. What happens while boiling? Magnesium bicarbonate will get converted to magnesium hydroxide and carbon dioxide gas will be liberated. Similarly, calcium bicarbonate will form calcium carbonate, carbon dioxide gas and water. So what is happening? When water is boiled, we get magnesium hydroxide and calcium carbonate which are insoluble. That means a soluble salt you're getting converted into insoluble salt so that they will precipitate, and then you can remove it by filtration. So you have to remove it by filtration, and the filtrate what you get, the water after removing all the precipitate, we call it as soft water. Okay. So next method of removing temporary hardness is by Clark's method. In Clark's method, we are treating hard water with lime, and when we do so, we get insoluble precipitates of magnesium hydroxide and calcium carbonate. So what we are doing? We are taking hard water. Hard water has calcium bicarbonate and magnesium bicarbonate. You are treating it with lime, that is CaOH twice, and calcium will form calcium carbonate, magnesium will form magnesium hydroxide and calcium carbonate. Now where did this calcium carbonate come from? That is because calcium hydroxide is there, it will form calcium carbonate as well. Okay. So you will get all insoluble, you will get a precipitate. All of this will precipitate because they are insoluble. Once they precipitate, you have to filter it out and remove, then the water will be soft water. Okay. This is Clark's method. So these are the two methods of removing temporary hardness of water. What is permanent hard water? Presence of calcium and magnesium, chlorides and sulfates. So if you have calcium chloride or calcium sulfate, or you have magnesium chloride and magnesium sulfate, then that water we call it as permanent hard water. Okay. So how will we exactly convert permanent hard water to soft water? First method is treatment with washing soda. What is washing soda? It is Na2CO3, that is sodium carbonate, isn't it? So if you are treating water with sodium carbonate, what will happen? We'll see. If there are chlorides and sulfates, M can be calcium or magnesium. Okay, we are not writing separately. MCl2 means it can be calcium chloride or magnesium chloride. MSO4 means it can be calcium sulfate or magnesium sulfate. M can be replaced with calcium or magnesium. Okay, so when it is treated with, chlorides are treated with washing soda, that is sodium carbonate, you will get a carbonate salt, okay, which is insoluble, and sodium chloride which is soluble salt, and this is not leading to hard water. Okay, and you will form metal sulfate with washing soda. It can form sodium sulfate and the metal carbonate. So the metal carbonates will be precipitated. It will form sodium chloride and sodium sulfate. Now what is precipitated? What we will do? We can filter it out and remove, and the water will become soft water. So this is the first method, treating with washing soda. Next method is Kalgan's method. Sodium metaphosphate is called as Calgon, and it is Na6P6O18, or it can be also written as Na2Na4P6O18. Okay, this is sodium hexametaphosphate, which is also called as Calgon. Now this one, when it is added to hard water, what will happen? First, the Calgon will get ionized to form Na plus, and you will get Na4P6O2 minus O18 with 2 minus charge. This ion further will react with calcium and magnesium ions which is there. Okay, now what happens is, this metal it will be taking with itself, and instead of that it will give sodium ions, and a complex is formed. What is formed? A complex is formed. You can see Na2M, this element has gone there, P6O18, 2 minus. So you get a complex, and in water, instead of calcium and magnesium, what is getting replaced? Sodium is getting replaced, or sodium is getting liberated. Sodium ions will not lead to any hard water, isn't it? It is something which is present, or which is considered as to be present in soft water. Thus, a complex ion is formed. This can be removed further. Okay, so this is Calgon's method. I hope you have understood. Next, we are going to the third method called as ion exchange method or permutate method. In ion exchange method, or it's also called as permutate method, zeolites are added into hard water. Now what is zeolite? It is sodium aluminium silicate, or we can write it as NaZ, and Z is AlSiO4. Okay, so hydrated aluminium silicate is called as zeolite. Now what will happen is, when you pass hard water through ion exchange chamber which has got zeolites, okay, which has got zeolites and sodium, what will happen is, on the zeolite the metal will get attached. Okay, so what you have, calcium ions and magnesium ions, which is actually responsible for hardness, is there in your water, isn't it? These will get exchanged with sodium. So zeolites is there, in which you have sodium. Okay, now you are passing hard water. Hard water will replace sodium. Sodium will go into water and it will be replaced with calcium. Again sodium will go, it will be replaced with calcium or magnesium. It can be any one. Okay, so what is going into water? Sodium ions are going into water. Thus hard water is getting converted to soft water. So what happens? For zeolites, when you pass water, the ions which is there, that is calcium and magnesium ions, get attached on the zeolite, and sodium ions will be liberated. Now what happens is, your zeolites, what is there, has got all calcium and magnesium. Now you want to regenerate that zeolite. What you do? We have to regenerate it by treating with aqueous NaCl. Now after, once your hard water is completely got converted to soft water, I have a zeolite in which sodium ions are not there. It is all taken up with water, isn't it? So now what we are doing is, we add sodium chloride solution. So when I add sodium chloride solution, what will happen? Calcium and magnesium ions will be coming out from the zeolite, and it will be replaced with sodium ions, and calcium and magnesium will come out as what? It will come as chlorides, which I am going to throw it out. I don't require them, isn't it? So what we are doing? First, we are taking hard water and passing into the chamber. In the chamber, you have zeolites, that is the permutate or the zeolites are there. So water, as it is moving above, it is moving above, what will happen? There is exchange is happening. Whatever calcium ions and magnesium ions will get attached on the zeolites. Okay, and what will happen? Instead of that, to water, sodium ions are going. So what comes out from here is soft water, because calcium and magnesium ions are getting stuck on the zeolite. Now I got soft water. I don't pass any water. I've finished my process. Now if I want to regenerate my zeolite, now I want to remove this calcium and magnesium, what will I do? I will pass this brine solution. Brine solution is nothing but concentrated NaCl solution. What is it? It is concentrated what? NaCl solution. So when I pass this, what will happen is calcium and magnesium ions will go out as calcium chloride and magnesium chloride, and it will get replaced with sodium ions. That waste water we remove from here. Okay, so that is about ion exchange method or permuted method. Next we have synthetic resin method. In synthetic resin method, we have a resin like RSO3H. Okay, what we do is we convert or we remove this SO3H and we replace it with RNA. R stands for resin. Okay, now in this, what is happening? The name itself tells synthetic cation exchange method. That means you are replacing the cation or exchanging the cation. Now you have a resin RNA which you have got by treating it with NaCl. That is, this resin you take and treat it with NaCl. Okay, and the whole thing is removed and sodium ions get replaced. Now you have RNA. Now for RNA, you pass hard water. What will happen? The calcium and magnesium ions get substituted or gets attached to the resin, and sodium will be liberated to water. Sodium ions, when it is liberated, it is not hard water. So you are converting the hard water to soft water. Also, we can do it in a different way. That is, in this process, even H plus ion can be exchanged for calcium, magnesium and sodium ions. So you have calcium, magnesium, sodium ions, we can replace it with H plus ion. That is, you have RH resin. H will go into the solution and takes up the other cations. Okay, but this makes the water acidic. Okay, then what exactly we can do? Again, there is a process in which you have to exchange it with OH minus ion. Some of the water you have to again exchange it with OH minus, that is Cl minus, HCO3 minus, SO4 2 minus. Anions are also getting replaced. With what? With OH minus. Thus, H plus ions we got. Water was acidic. Then the same water, when it is passed for replacing it with OH minus ion, that is the anion exchange is happening. You are exchanging it with all the anions. So H plus ions was excess. Now the OH minus ions also have come to give pure water. Thus we can also get demineralized water. Several times if we do this, we will get demineralized water. You can see RH with the cations, you will get H plus ion will be replaced. Okay, so water will become acidic. Now the same water which is acidic, you are passing again for OH minus ion exchange. So OH minus ion is getting exchanged with other anions like Cl minus, HCO3 minus and SO4 2 minus. Thus H plus and OH minus ion gets neutralized to give water. Thus we can get what type of water? Demineralized water or distilled water anta heltivi. It does not have any other ions other than H2O or H plus and OH minus ion. So I hope you have understood today's class. Next class we will be learning about hydrogen peroxide, heavy water and hydrogen economy. Thank you my dear children. Stay tuned, stay focused.